And here we go with chapter 8, continuing about the mouse and the motorcycle. All the little cousins looked disappointed and sulky.
"I don't think he ever had a motorcycle,"
said one.
"I bet he just made it up,"
said another. And the rest agreed. Ralph felt terrible. The family reunion swirled on around him. The muffin and cookie were divided. Cousins fought over the blueberries. Uncles, usually overweight uncles, asked for second helpings. Everyone talked at once. The little cousins finished their dinner and went racing around the mouse nest. The aunts and uncles raised their voices to be heard above the racket their children made. Suddenly, there came from the knothole a noise that drowned out the squeaks and squeals of young mice at play. Shh! Not a mouse moved. They looked at one another, too terrified to speak. Psst!
"Hey, Ralph, come on out,"
whispered Keith at the entrance of the mouse nest. Ralph's mother gave him a little shove, but nobody spoke. With heavy feet, Ralph walked to the knothole, but he did not go out into room 215.
What do you want?"
he asked.
"You and your family better be quiet in there, or my mother will hear you. You know how she is about mice," Keith said. "I don't know why people say things are as quiet as mice. You sound like a pretty noisy bunch to me."
Behind Ralph, his relatives began to tiptoe quietly away to their own mouse holes, leaving his mother to do all the cleanup.
Did you have a nice picnic?"
Ralph asked, dreading what he must tell the boy.
"Yes, we saw an old mining town with a real jail with bars and windows."
On the windows, Keith reached into his pocket and pulled out something curved and hard and white with a rubber band fastened at it and with a piece of Scotch tape.
"I brought you a present," he said. "Come on out."
Puzzled and curious, Ralph squeezed through the knothole.
"What is it?"
he asked. Whatever the object was, he had never seen it before.
"Have a ping-pong ball I found down in the game room," said Keith. "See, I paddled the inside with the thistle down and anchor the rubber band on the top with Scotch tape."
"What for?" Ralph still did not understand.
"A crash helmet for you."
Keith set the half of the ping-pong ball on Ralph's head and slipped the rubber band carefully around his whiskers until it rested under his chin.
"There, that's just right. You need it big so there will be plenty of room for your ears. But when you ride your motorcycle, you need a crash helmet."
And there's the tiniest little mouse with his crash helmet. So I don't know if you understood what was happening, but he cut the ping pong ball in half and took half of it as the helmet and then put on a rubber band to make it like the band of the helmet. Okay. Ralph peered at Keith from under his new crash helmet which rested lightly on his head. He knew he looked every inch a motorcycle racer. But never in his whole life had he felt so ashamed. He longed to crawl off into his hole and never face Keith again. But his conscience, which until now he did not know he had, would not let him. There was nothing to do but stand there in the fine new crash helmet and confess. "You might as well know," he told Keith. "I lost your motorcycle." "Lost the motorcycle?" Keith, who had been kneeling, sat back on his knees. "But how?" "I rode it by mistake into a pillowcase and a heap of linen on the floor, and it got dumped into the laundry hamper," confessed Ralph. "You rode it into a pillowcase?" repeated Keith. "But you weren't supposed to ride it at all. In the daytime, you promised." "I know," agreed Ralph miserably. "I didn't exactly mean to write it." "I know." "No, wait. But you did." Ralph Keith's voice was accusing.
Well, you see, the maid was vacuuming under the bed and
began Ralph and stopped.
Oh, what's the use? I wrote it and I lost it and it's probably gone to the laundry. But now, and I'm sorry.
The boy and the mouse were silent. Both were thinking about the little motorcycle with its clean lines and pair of shining chromium exhaust pipes. The motorcycle was my very most favorite of all my cars, said Keith. I saved my allowance and bought it for myself. Ralph hung his head in the crash helmet. There was nothing more he could say. It was a terrible thing he had done. I guess I should have known you weren't old enough to be trusted with a motorcycle, said Keith. The boy could not have said anything that hurt Ralph more. Chapter 9. Ralph Takes Command. It was a sad night for Ralph. A sad and lonely night. If he went back to the mouse hole, his mother was sure to worry him with embarrassing questions about the motorcycle. She would also expect him to help clean up after the family reunion. If he took off his crash helmet, he could squeeze under the door, explore the hall on foot, but he could not bear to part with the helmet. And anyway, he had no desire to travel by foot where he had once ridden with such noise and speed. Ralph scurried through shadows on the floor to the curtain, which he climbed to the windowsill. There he sat, huddled and alone, staring out into the night, listening to the kissing sounds of the bats as he jerked and zigzagged from the eaves of the hotel, through the pines and back again. Around the window, the leaves of a Virginia creeper vine shifted in the breeze, and down in the lobby a clock struck midnight. An owl slid silently through the night across the clearing of the parking lot from one pine to another. Wow, Ralph could remember a time when he had envied bats and owls and their ability to fly, but that was before he had experienced the speed and the power of a motorcycle. Here is the picture of Ralph in the window. Early in the morning, the smell of bacon drifting up from the kitchen brought back all Ralph's dreams of the ground floor. It was not long until he was embarrassed to discover that Keith was awake and was lying quietly in bed watching him. "Hi," said Keith.
Oh, hello.
Ralph wished he had returned to the mouse hole before dawn.
Well, I guess it's about time for me to go home to bed.
Keith sat up. "Don't go yet. Wait until my folks get up." Ralph leaped to the floor.
I didn't think you would want to talk to me after I lost your motorcycle.
I may never have another chance to talk to a mouse. Ralph was flattered. It had never occurred to him that a boy would consider talking to a mouse anything special. "What would you like for breakfast?" asked Keith.
You mean we still get room service after what I did?
Sure. Keith pulled his knees up under his chin and wrapped his arms around his legs.
You mean you aren't mad at me anymore?
Asked Ralph. I guess you might say I'm mad, but not real mad, Keith decided. I've been lying here thinking it wouldn't be right for me to be real mad because I get into messes myself. My mom and dad tell me I don't stop to use my head. Ralph nodded. I guess that's my trouble too. I don't stop and use my head. They say I'm too much of a hurry, said Keith. They say I don't want to take time to learn to do things properly. Ralph nodded again. He understood. If he had waited until he had learned to ride the motorcycle, he would never had ridden off the bedside table and into the wastebasket. I'll never forget the first time I rode a bicycle with handbrakes, reminisced Keith. I took right off down a hill. I had always ridden bicycles with foot brakes, and when I got going too fast, I tried to put my foot on the brake, only there wasn't any.
What happened?
Ralph was fascinated. By the time I remembered to use the handbrake, I hit a tree and took an awful spill. Somehow, this story made Ralph feel better. He was not the only one who got into trouble. The hard part is, continued Keith, I am in a hurry. I don't want to do kid things. I want to do big things, real things. I want to grow up.
You look pretty grown up to me,
said Ralph. Maybe to a mouse, conceded Keith. But I want to look grown up, to grown-ups.
So do I,
said Ralph with feelings.
I want to grow up and go down to the ground floor.
Everybody tells me to be patient, said Keith, but I don't want to be patient.
Me either,
agreed Ralph. Someone stirred next door in room 216.
Well, I guess I'd better be running along,
said Ralph.
Say, what about that breakfast?
Sure, what do you want?
How about some bacon?
Suggested Ralph, remembering the fragrance that had floated up the windowsill.
And some toast?
Oh, and some toast?
With jelly?
Agreed Ralph and ran off to the mouse hole, eager to tell his family things were not so bad after all. They were still entitled to room service. But when Ralph reached the mouse hole, he found pandemonium. His brothers and sisters and cousins were huddled together, squeaking with fright. His mother picked up a bunch of shredded Kleenex and put it down again, only to pick up another bunch as if she did not know what to do with it. And Uncle Lester and Aunt Dorothy were there too, stuffing crumbs into their mouths as if they'd expected never to eat again.
Dear me,
Ralph's mother was saying.
Whatever shall we... Oh, Ralph, there you are at last. Where on earth have you been? Never mind, we haven't time.
Time for what? Asked Ralph.
What's going on around here anyway? The housekeeper, your Uncle Lester, the sheets. Oh, do be quiet, everybody.
Ralph's mother was so agitated she could not tell her son what was wrong. Uncle Lester swallowed a mouthful of crumbs. It's like this, Ralph. The housekeeper discovered a hamper full of sheets and towels and pillowcases with holes chewed in them. Uh-oh, thought Ralph. Whatever happened was all his fault. He might have known. I heard her telephoning the manager about it from her office, continued Uncle Lester. The manager came up and called in all the maids and the bellboys and everyone who had looked at the holes chewed in the sheets. It was quite a powwow. The motorcycle, thought Ralph. What happened to the motorcycle? There might be a chance it did not go to the laundry after all. You didn't happen to see the motorcycle in the housekeeper's office, did you? He ventured. I was listening, not looking out, said Uncle Lester. I am not foolhardy like some people around here.
Ralph, you know what this means?
His mother managed to pull herself together to say that much.
It means war on mice,
said Aunt Dorothy ominously. It means traps, poison, said Uncle Lester. Who knows? This time the management might even spend money on an exterminator. We shall have to flee. There is nothing else to do.
And if we flee, the owls will get us,
said Ralph's mother, causing the brothers and sisters and cousins to set up an awful squeal. Shh! The mother mouse fluttered with her paws in alarm.
Flee?
Ralph was bewildered.
Flee and leave room service? Room service? Exclaimed his mother. How can we expect room service after you lost that poor boy's motorcycle? It's all right,
Ralph assured his mother, and could not resist adding rather grandly,
I've already ordered. Room service is bringing us bacon and toast with jelly.
And there is a picture of the mouse. Traps, poison, owls, and dangers ahead. This news silenced everyone. A breakfast of bacon and toast with jelly delivered to the mouse nest without first being dropped on the carpet was not to be abandoned lightly.
We want jelly! We want jelly!
Ah, the little cousins began to squeak.
Be quiet,
ordered Uncle Lester.
Do you want them to find us?
Ralph knew that no matter what the others chose to do, he was not going to flee from the hotel, not until he found out what had happened to the motorcycle. He was very sure of this, and all at once he felt calm and clear-headed as he had never felt before. He knew exactly what his family should do.
Be quiet, everybody,
Ralph ordered, standing up straight so all his relatives could see him.
I will tell you what we're going to do.
See here, Ralph, interrupted Uncle Lester. You are pretty young to be giving orders to the elders.
Now, Lester, said Aunt Dorothy, let's listen to Ralph. After all, he has our food brought up by room service. No one else in the history of the family has managed that.
This silenced Uncle Lester, and Ralph was allowed to continue.
What we should do is keep quiet for a few days.
Here he looked down at his little cousins, who for once in their lives were not squeaking.
I will arrange for room service to bring our meal so we won't have to go scrabbling around in the woodwork or scrounging around in the rooms. That way we won't be tempted to taste any poison food or go near any traps. And if the management doesn't see or hear any of us for a few days, they will forget about us. They always do.
Now, just wait a minute, said Uncle Lester. This boy won't be here long. You know how it is with people. Here today, gone tomorrow. Ralph had the answer.
This is only Sunday. He will be here until Tuesday because Monday is the 4th of July, and his father says he won't drive in a holiday weekend traffic. He always brings us plenty, and if we don't stuff ourselves, we can save enough to last until management forgets us.
Uncle Lester nodded thoughtfully. That seems like a sound idea.
Yes, but Ralph, there is one thing worries me, said his mother. How are we going to tip room service? When people have a waiter bring food to their room, they'll always give him a coin or two for his service. We haven't any money.
Ralph had not thought of this.
If we are going to continue to accept room service, we must do the right thing, insisted his mother. Don't worry, I'll think of something,
promised Ralph, in the grand way he had acquired since he had ordered a meal sent up the mouse nest. Chapter 10, An Anxious Night. At first, Ralph's scheme worked. Keith delivered the promised bacon, toast, and jelly. The mice ate sparingly and laid aside the leftovers against the day Keith must leave the hotel. Ralph's mother continued to worry about tipping the room service.
I want to do the right thing, she insisted. There must be some way we could manage a tip.
Thus, the mice dared not leave the nest to search for small coins that might have rolled under beds and dressers. It was late in the afternoon when Ralph heard Keith and his parents return to their rooms, very quietly, so that his toenails did not make scrabbling sounds in the woodwork. He slipped to the knothole and peeped out in time to see Keith flop down in his bed. Do I have to go down to the dining room for dinner? Keith asked his mother and father. I'm not hungry. Uh-oh, thought Ralph. There goes dinner. I told you not to eat the whole bag of peanuts so close to dinner time, said his father. I didn't eat all of it, said Keith. That's good, thought Ralph. At least there will be some peanuts for dinner.
You'll feel better after you get washed up for dinner, said Mrs. Gridley. Hurry along now.
When his parents had gone into room 216, Ralph noticed that Keith seemed to drag himself off the bed. He walked to the wash basin, turned on the cold water, moistened his fingers, and wiped them all over his face. Then he turned off the water and gave the middle of his face a swipe with a towel. which he returned to the towel rack in such a way that it immediately fell to the floor. And that is where we will stop for today. And we'll finish chapter 9 tomorrow. Okay, see you guys soon. Have a great day. Bye.